Hello and welcome to KSQD Santa Cruz and KSQT Prunedale. This is Talk of the Bay. I'm your host, PK Haddis. It's always been good being a vegan in Santa Cruz County, but this month it is especially appetizing. A whole new slate of vegan menu items have been rolled out in restaurants and cafes across the county for the entire month of April as part of the Santa Cruz Vegan Chef Challenge. To tell us more about the meat and dairy-free initiative, I'm joined on today's show by the organizer of the challenge, Allison Garcia, as well as the owner of one of the participating restaurants, Patrice Boyle of La Posta in Seabright. Allison and Patrice, thanks so much for coming on Talk of the Bay.
Thank you.
Okay,
yeah,
Allison.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure here, and always happy to talk about food, of course, in my case. Allison, I wanted to start with you. If you could just kind of lay the foundation for us and explain for our listeners what the Santa Cruz Vegan Chef Challenge is.
Sure. Well, the Vegan Chef Challenge was started about 15, 16 years ago by a nonprofit organization called Vegan Outreach. Started in North Carolina, and I think then the following year it came to Sacramento. And they've been doing it there for 15 years. They realized very quickly that it was something that could be scaled up. And so they started doing it in other cities as well. And so now it's in over 50, maybe up to 65 cities around the country. So different ones every month. And this month in Santa Cruz, it's our inaugural event here at Santa Cruz. But at the same time, there's one in Peoria, Illinois, and I think Toronto, Canada. Next month is Marin. They're in places like Tulsa, Oklahoma, places you wouldn't necessarily think about having a vegan chef challenge. But people want them. People like me. I'm a volunteer, and so I'm one of many volunteers around the country who are introducing this concept to the places where they live, with the goal of expanding the vegan options at restaurants throughout the county.
Kind of surprising to hear that it's the inaugural year. You would have thought something like this might have caught on sooner in Santa Cruz County, just because it's generally seen as a pretty left-leaning, progressive, more than left-leaning, sort of progressive town that I'm sure is home to many, many vegans. Kind of surprised that this is the first year. Interesting that it's happening, but yeah.
Yeah, it is kind of surprising. I think if you're a vegan, it's maybe less surprising. But yes, I mean, we are positioned well because we have the university that, a lot of young people are interested in plant-forward foods and menus. We have, our environmental concerns with the Bay. We have, of course, fresh produce with our agriculture in Watsonville. And then we have a lot of the farm-to-table restaurants, including Patrice's from Swaff and now La Posta, that introduce this kind of, very, very good and fresh food. And so the fact is, though, I mean, we have, 64,000 in our city. Someplace like Portland, which has 10 times the population, they have about, 40, 50 all vegan restaurants. But Santa Cruz, as you probably know by now, we have one. And it's Veg on the Edge. And we love Veg on the Edge, but it's only one, and it's a counter in a food court, and that's great because it's very accessible to many people, and they get lots of exposure. But if you do kind of the math, the comparison, if Portland has 50 restaurants and they're 10 times the size, we should at least have 10 restaurants, but we don't. We just have one. So we lost a couple. We lost Cafe Gratitude with the pandemic. Mm-hmm. We lost Saturn Cafe years ago. So, and sometimes people like to say, oh, because, vegan restaurants aren't going to make it. They do close, but I'm sure Patrice will tell you, so do restaurants that aren't vegan close. It's not an easy business. But like there was one in Oakland that just closed, Millennium, that was very popular.
That was a great place. Yeah.
Great place. But they were there for 30 years. So you can't say that they were just a trend. It was a mainstay. And so anyway, it would be great to have more vegan restaurants, but I can't make anybody open a vegan restaurant. Hopefully we'll attract some, but what we do hope to do is have the existing restaurants have more vegan options. And what I mean by that is we are seen, I think, as being vegan friendly in a sense, because you could go probably to almost any place and get something vegan. Very traditionally, that meant that you're picking something from the side menu, like a baked potato or a salad or something like that, and that would be the extent of it. But more and more, there's something vegan, an entree on the menu. However, oftentimes there's just one, maybe a starter, maybe an entree. So, for example, if my husband and I go out to eat, we're like, well, I guess we'll get the only thing. So it's not really an option, because if an omnivore, say, goes to a restaurant and there are 30 or 40 things on the menu, well, okay, 20, whatever. They have 20 things to choose from, and we have one, which isn't even a choice. It's just one. So expanding gives us vegans more options, but also I think it gives everyone an expanded notion of what vegan cuisine can be, because it can have all of the same flavor profiles of, salty and all the fats and sweet and umami and all of that, and really be delicious cuisine. And I experienced that when I went to La Posta the other day to try the vegan challenge there, and their chef, I'll let Patrice tell the story because I don't know what the story is behind his dish, but it was an orchietta. It's house made, so that you could really tell the pasta was so fresh, and it's really hot, and it had some kind of tomato sauce and orchietta, which is a shell type one, and then fagioli, which is the bean, so it had the protein in it too, and it was one. I was so happy to have that dish because it was really flavorful.
Yeah, and I know I'm salivating, and I'm sure some of our listeners are, and of course want to dive deep on that item, Patrice, in just a moment. But just before we do, would you mind, Allison, just sharing what the actual challenge is, just kind of the nuts and bolts of it before we kind of launch in?
Right. So it's for the entire month of April. And restaurants were invited to participate. We went out and emailed and messaged and walked into restaurants and told them, we're doing this Vegan Chef Challenge. Do you want to participate? The challenge part of it is for the chefs to challenge themselves to be creative in coming up with a new dish that vegans and non-vegans alike would like to try. And so we weren't sure how many we were going to get. We were hoping for at least 10 to make it a viable, program. And we got 27 in our first year. And so we're just blown away. Now, those 27 include all kinds of businesses. There are a couple of pop-ups, Penny Ice Creamery. So, it's not a restaurant per se, but you can go there and try a new kind of ice cream. So we got all kinds, and we got them throughout the county. And so we have one Circle and Square in Corralitos, and then as far as Davenport Roadhouse, which has new ownership up in Davenport, and then several in downtown, of course, and then Seabright, La Posta, and then in Capitola. So the chefs come up with these up to 3 new menu items that are plant-based, put them on their menu, and then they pay a $50 donation, basically, which covers the cost of the printed materials, which includes large posters, small posters that we provide them with, and also these, I don't have one with me, but it's a table tent, and it has a QR code on it. So after someone tries their dish, then they can scan the QR code and vote and rate their dish, each dish. They can also send in photos if they want. So we tally all of those votes, and then at the end of the month, we are going to let the votes go on for a few days, and then we'll tally them up. And then about mid-May, we're going to have an event it's an awards event, and we're going to crown the winner of the Vegan Chef Challenge, one of the chefs, like first, second, and third. And also everyone will get some kind of acknowledgement certificate. Maybe it'll be, most creative pizza or best dessert, that kind of thing. So everybody's got something unique to offer and to feature. And then we'll also have prizes for super voters. So anyone who votes 3 or more times and provides their email, they'll be eligible for some kind of prize. And also for the photos, maybe someone who has taken really good food photos. I personally think I took some good food photos, but I'm not putting myself in the drawing.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Thanks for that breakdown, Allison. So Patrice, let me throw it over to you. I want to hear how you got involved with this, but it's like I can't wait any longer to hear about what item your chef at La Posta came up with. I'm sorry, I don't know their name. Maybe you could just describe the item, and then we could get into how you got involved here.
Well, we have a few thanks, and actually thanks for having me, and thanks for starting and getting this here, Allison. I think it's really it's about time. It's really about time. And that's coming from somebody who has just a regular restaurant. We're omnivores over at La Posta. The thing is that with Italian food, there is this concept or consideration of Italian food. People often talk about cucina povera, and that is the cuisine of the poor people. And as you go farther south in Italy, the food is less and less meat-centric and dairy-centric, and it's more and more vegetarian. Also, in the center of the country, it's more vegetarian. On the edges, it would be include fish as well. And obviously they do have cheeses and that sort of thing, but the cheeses tend to be hard cheeses, grating cheese, as opposed to like eating great chunks of cheese, what have you. So the two orecchiette is the pasta that we're making, and it means little ears. And orecchiette is your ear, and orecchiette is a little ear. And so there are these little pastas, and we make all of our pastas at La Posta, but most of the pasta that we make is egg pasta. So you put, which is a Northern Italian kind of construct and our tradition. But orecchiette is from Puglia, which is the heel of Italy, right? And that's that area in the boot. And it's just flour, salt, and water. And you mix it up. You let it rest a little while, let the glutens kind of develop, and then you pinch it off. You roll it into a long, you take little pieces off, you roll them into kind of long, look like sort of breadsticks, but longer, and then you chop it up, and then you just press them with your thumb, and they are these little round things. You have to have, and they're little round pastas, and they look like tiny little cups. And the irony is, of course, is that we have this amazing prep cook chef who works for La Posta, and he has worked for us since we opened, and he makes most of our pasta. But only the chef, who has also worked at La Posta for almost 20 years as well, only the chef makes the orecchiette, because you have to have smaller fingers. If your finger, and the chef is like very picky about it, and so he says, "No, I will only make the this pasta. This pasta is only made for me, by me. And he has twin daughters, and I'm always saying, okay, are the girls old enough to start making pasta? But that has not happened yet.
Well, they are little ears after all, right? So
they are little, exactly. Yeah. They are little ears. And so, we make all of our pastas, and all of these pastas, they're these little things. They're the size of a nickel, between the size of a nickel and a quarter. So they're pretty small, and you need a lot of them for a plate of food, right? And so we make all of these pastas one piece by one piece by one piece. You mix the dough, you let it rest, you roll it out, and then sometimes we put it through the rollers for other pastas, but they eventually all get cut up and formed in some way, and it's just like one piece after another, and we need, I don't know, 40 or 50 pieces for this plate just for one serving. So it's really kind of a labor of love on his part, especially to make the archette, because he has to make it. So, and it is typical. This dish is not something that we created, and it's something that we actually have had on our menu numerous times. But it is escarole, cannellini beans, pasta. Sometimes you hear, like maybe in New York or New Jersey, East Coast, pasta fazool, which is basically pasta with fagioli, which are beans. That's a real typical dish in southern Italy. And they call it pasta fagioli, and it kind of got changed to pasta fazool, like when people from southern Italy came to the East Coast. And it's escarole, which is a hearty, slightly bitter green, the cannellini beans, some tomatoes, and some breadcrumbs. It's very simple. Every once in a while, I like to throw a little chili in there, although that's not standard. Beans were brought to Italy in the Columbian Exchange. Columbus returned to Europe with beans, among others, and tomatoes, and chocolate, and all sorts of amazing things.
All have places on an Italian, menu.
And they are all on Italian menus all the time. So it's kind of, and potatoes. It's kind of great. The Spanish crown owned Sicily and Naples for a long time. So there's all of this kind of historical story about how these products got to Italy and became part of the sort of Italian canon, if you will, So anyway, so we have the archette. I love archette with beans. It's just so delicious. And then we have these other fritters, and we've been making a lot of fritters because sort of what's better than something that's kind of salty and fried, right? Can't
hard to think of anything.
It truly is, I think, nothing better. And they've got peppers, like bell peppers, and onion, saute it up, chop them, and they made they didn't saute them up. Well, maybe they did. They made a relish out of them. So they did. They cooked them down a little bit, and they're all chopped up in small, pretty small pieces. And then they put it into a dough, which is just like not a dough that you would shape with your hand. It's a really loose dough that would be in a bowl. You have this dough that's basically just flour and water and some salt. You throw in this relish, you mix it all up, and then you just take spoonfuls of it and dump it into a fryer. And oh my God, they're so good.
It's called pituli or something.
Putile. Yeah. Pitule. And they are so good. We drizzled them a little bit with a little bit of old balsamic vinegar.
Yes,
so it's nice.
It's also very good as an appetizer.
That brings a little bit of sweetness into it.
If you're just joining us, you're listening to KSQD Santa Cruz and KSQT Prunedale. This is Talk of the Bay. I'm your host, PK Haddis. I'm joined today by Allison Garcia, lead volunteer and organizer of the Santa Cruz Vegan Chef Challenge, as well as Patrice Boyle, owner of La Posta Restaurant in Seabright, one of the many participants of this year's inaugural challenge in Santa Cruz. Patrice has just been walking us through a couple of the items that have been added to La Posta's menu for the month of April, and we are all eager to get something to eat after hearing about that, Patrice. So thanks for breaking it down. It's always so lovely to hear about food, to talk about food, but also food is culture and history, importantly, as you've reminded us, about where the roots of some of these dishes that have been modernized with plant-based offerings, but they go back, centuries. So thanks for that reminder. Allison, I wanted to kick it over back to you for a second, just so you could talk about veganism. As I understand it, you yourself have been a vegan for some time. What made you make that choice? And tell us about why our listeners might want to pay attention to the vegan movement or to just a plant-based diet more so.
Yeah, well, it's probably about 20 years ago, and I won't tell you how old I was then or now, but anyway, about 20 years ago, I knew that that there was a way to eat healthier by incorporating more greens and more grains and, whole wheat, etc. I think I, kind of grew up with maybe I am dating myself then, but a standard American diet that probably included some, when I was a child, certainly, processed foods like Wonder Bread and stuff like that. So
all the things.
Yeah, all the things. And so it was really being introduced, I think, later in life to cuisines from around the world and realizing that there's so much more to, just fresh, wonderful food. So I looked into starting to eat healthier, and I started, cutting out. I was pescatarian at first. I cut out meat and chicken at first, and it was, I thought, oh gosh, it's hard. A lot of people say it's hard to give up cheese and that kind of thing. Good thing is nowadays there's really wonderful plant-based cheese. I don't even eat the plant-based cheese that often, but it's like anything. You break a habit and then you're fine, right? But anyway, so I was pescatarian, then vegetarian. So that means I was still having dairy and eggs. But then I realized that I was becoming somewhat lactose intolerant. I could just feel, digestively, it's like, I don't think I can tolerate this very much anymore. So I cut that out. And then actually what it was, my husband and I went to some sort of program, a medical program through Sutter that was about, eating plant-based or eating healthier, something. And so I started to learn a lot more about vegan cooking. I also did something through New Leaf. New Leaf is one of our sponsors of the Vegan Chef Challenge. And so I was learning new recipes. I was really excited about it too, because I had been getting really sick of my own cooking, which had a lot of chicken breasts in there. And anyway, so I was feeling creative myself, learning about vegan cuisine. And so I've been eating plant-based for the last 10 years, feel, very healthy. And it really is a good way to improve your health. There's something like, a third less, people who eat plant-based have a third less risk of diabetes, cholesterol, just all the things. And then as I was kind of opening myself up to learning more about this, I also learned how a plant-based diet is better for the environment as well, because the animal industry is huge, animal agriculture, right? So we're growing food to feed to animals, to feed to people. And so that takes a lot of land and a lot of resources. So one thing I learned, like if you compare a plant-based burger to a hamburger, a meat burger, right? It uses a plant-based burger will use 75 to 90% less water, 75 to 9% less land, and 75 to 95% fewer emissions, because, those cows, they emit that methane, right? So it's much better for the environment. And then, of course, I started learning about the animals that suffer in the animal agriculture industry. So it just aligns now with my values. I've kind of grown in this direction, and I feel better about being more compassionate and making choices that align with my values. And so eating plant-based, even if it's just sometimes, just making those choices, being more plant-forward, being more conscientious about it, is the single thing that, the one thing that people can do to really make a difference for our planet and for our health and for the animals.
Patrice, let me turn to you once again and ask about the process of developing these new items, or maybe new isn't the right word, but different ingredients for some perhaps previously existing menu items. Could you just walk me through, from what you're aware of, your chef's process? Was it challenging to find these different alternative ingredients, or was it exciting, perhaps creatively stimulating? Speak to that if you can.
Well, the chefs always love a challenge, actually, and they really like to try new things. We actually new menu items or work on something new. It does take some time to develop things. There's some trial and error, a lot of thought about it. Sometimes we're trying to reverse engineer something, or sometimes we're trying to, somebody tastes something someplace and says, "Oh, this is really good," or thinks about something, "This is really good. Let's make this." And so it can be it can be a fairly long process. It takes weeks, to do that. I have to admit, with a lot of Italian food, though, is very vegetarian friendly, and we talk a lot about how to make things available for people who come into the restaurant who have special concerns. So with this, I said, okay, let's do this vegan challenge. I've always really been intrigued by it, and I've always kind of wanted to have more. I think we have a lot of vegetarian stuff on the menu, actually. But I was happy to do this, and I thought, oh, this will be fun. We can fool around. Let's try some different stuff. And Rodrigo Serna, who's our chef, immediately, of course, came up with the orchette. He said, well, we can make that. It doesn't have any egg in it, of course. So that's our first step, as we can use this pasta. The pasta is so good, by the way. And then, we'll probably change it up a little bit later and maybe try another set with more orchette, or maybe we'll try a different pasta. We make everything by hand, And so we don't have an extruder, which is how you would need to make spaghetti, right? Because spaghetti is not always, but most of the time is just flour and water. So we don't make our own spaghetti. We might have something, but we might have something with spaghetti, or we'll come up with another thing. We're meeting tomorrow. We meet every week to specifically to talk about the menu. Yeah.
So you're talking about potentially even after April leaving a vegan option on your menu, or is this just changing it up throughout the month of April?
Well, we'll be changing it up through the month of April, but we should definitely leave something on the menu. I mean, we have the thing about, it's nice to be able to say that this specific thing is vegan, but I'll just tell you the short story about our bartender for a long time. Was this great guy, and he ate everything, and then he met a woman and got married, and very happily started eating vegan. They're super happy. They come into the restaurant all the time, and he says La Posta is the best vegan restaurant in Santa Cruz, even though we're not a vegan restaurant, because so many of the things can be vegan. And I mean, if you leave off the cheese for this, we put cheese on the salad, but everything we make is we make at the last, we make when we serve it. We don't have like a whole bunch of things all mixed together that we plop on the plate. Everything gets made in, per each plate. And so we can leave things off, or we can add things in, or that sort of thing. So we do try to please our customers and kind of work with them so they're getting kind of the food that is healthy for them. Also, Santa Cruz, I mean, we have like the best farmers market ever. Any place, really. I mean, it's just so good. And we make this salad. Our salad is from Blue Heron Farms. These lettuces are epic. They are world class.
Blue Heron is
lettuces
in Watsonville. Is it?
They're just north of Watsonville, yeah, but kind of Watsonville, Soquel area. I mean, these lettuces are just amazing, but other people have great lettuces too. It's just like the lettuces here, the vegetables here, and everything is so fresh. It's kind of hard to go wrong, really.
Mm-hmm.
My friends who came with us had the Blue Heron lettuce, so I got to try it. So yes, I can vouch for it. I mean, it was this huge plate of lettuces that were so delicate and so fresh that, and it's not like when I grab romaine out of my refrigerator that's been there for a week and make a salad,
Well, it's not
really good.
Yeah. It's not salad mix. Like there's no salad mix in our world, it's really these just fantastic little heads of lettuce or large heads of lettuce, depends. But all throughout Santa Cruz, we shop at the farmers market at least twice a week, and we get deliveries from some farmers as well. And so many other restaurants in Santa Cruz also do this, like Charlie Hong Kong does this, it's almost fast food, but, they are like totally on top of it. I know the people at Ibiza do it. I know the people at Hook and Line do it. And, there are just so many restaurants that are buying their vegetables locally, that it becomes easier to produce good vegetarian or vegan food when you have this kind of a resource.
And I was glad to see, as I was mentioning to you earlier, Patrice, that the menu, which, is changed regularly when you're updating your dishes, that it indicates what either is already vegan or can be made vegan, the little, which is really helpful for vegans coming to eat.
Yeah.
It makes us feel more welcome, I think. And also, it's, information that non-vegans can also use that they'll.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look at this and make a decision based on what I'm feeling at the moment. It's just full information.
Yeah. Well, we're definitely going to leave that on the menu, that those little V's, and so that we want people to feel a little more welcome, I guess. Maybe,
Definitely.
kind of help people that way. Yeah.
Certainly. And I just, I'm so glad you spoke about the ingredients and where they come from. And it's another important thread, shouting out the farmers markets here in Santa Cruz. They're just world class, and anybody, I don't know if any listeners out there haven't been to one. If that's the case, what are you doing? You gotta check it out. It's, they really are amazing. And they, you can buy them for, put food in your own fridge, or many of our restaurants locally use them for ingredients, from just a few miles away. So it's a great cycle
sure.
to perpetuate. Allison, you and I have talked a bit about this. It's sort of related to my question to Patrice, but I wanted to hear you talk about, I don't know if you've consulted with any restaurants or cafes that have decided to participate or advise them on how to kind of go about this, but I've heard you talk about vegan menus and perhaps vegans in general not necessarily wanting food to be mimicked for like a meat-based item to be mimicked somehow for a vegan. There's kind of like a desire to have these vegan options show themselves, right? Showcase what they have to offer as a specifically vegan item. I was wondering if you could talk about that. Let me know if I have that perspective wrong, but I just thought it'd be interesting to hear you kind of elaborate on that for us.
I think you described that very well. Thank you, PK. I think it's true in some cases, not in others. I mean, I had some great cauliflower wings at Laughing Monk. So, yeah, I want to have wings and a beer sometimes, but just make it with cauliflower. So, I mean, is it copying? I guess you could say it is. They have really a few different sauces and make it really tasty. But in other cases, I had a really good bowl. Bowls are a nice, hearty vegan kind of thing at Chocolat the other day. And so there wasn't anything in there that made me think, oh, this is like having something with meat in it. It was just all about the grains and the vegetables and the herbs and the flavors that they mixed into it. A really great meal I had was at a new place. It's in the Capitola Mall, and it's called V&V Crepes, vegetarian and vegan, or vegan and vegetarian. It was the most delicious lunch that I had. I went there with a friend, and it was just so hearty, also very homemade. They shop at the farmers markets. There's two women owners. I forget what countries they're from. One is from Kazakhstan. They both originally from Russian-speaking countries, but been here a long time. Olga and Natasha, and they're wonderful. And they just, if you go there, you should talk to them. Definitely strike up a conversation, because they'll love to talk about their food and how they make it and everything. But it was a chickpea batter. So it was a thick crepe, not the thin crepes that we're used to. And they had created, it was a entirely new recipe inside with vegetables and things. So that was their savory, lots of arugula, everything was fresh. And then they had the sweet crepes that I couldn't even start. I mean, I had a bite of my friend's, but it was so good. A lot of fresh fruit, but a sweet coconut creams. And they have a very extensive menu anyway, but they did add 3 items to their menu that were new. So that doesn't imitate meat, but it imitates something that's already has a lot of dairy in it, but just made it vegan. So I think, sky's the limit. There is some things out there that are kind of processed foods like chicken nuggets, that kind of thing, that are chicken with an apostrophe, so it's not from a chicken, but or like the Beyond Burger and that kind of thing. And certainly that hits the spot sometimes. You want to have a burger, but I think there definitely are dishes that are creations unto themselves, and you can find that at places like Vim. I think they have something. Haven't gone there yet, but I've seen the photo of it. Something really interesting on their menu that has some polenta and mushrooms on it. Gosh, there's 27, so it's hard to say.
How can folks know who's participating?
So it's easy to just go to the website. It's veganchefchallenge.org/Santa Cruz. And there you'll find all of the participating restaurants and their menus and how to find them and how to contact them. It's also on Facebook and Instagram. So it would be Vegan Chef Challenge, I think, West, because even though we have a dedicated website, the Facebook is shared with cities on the West. So you also see Marin there and maybe Portland or others that are participating around this time, because it's a, continuous feed, so to speak, of posts.
Right.
So,
there's so many opportunities for puns. As I was drafting the script for this, I had to keep it simple because it was too fun.
Yeah, so I would go there. And a couple other resources I wanted to mention. The Vegan Outreach, the nonprofit that puts these on, also has a program called 10 Weeks to Vegan. And it's a free program where you can just sign up and get a weekly email that it's just informational, and it'll help you maybe answer questions that you might have about shifting your diet. And another thing that I wanted to mention is that there's going to be an event on Sunday, April 26th at 2:30 at the downtown library. It's an educational event. It's a documentary screening, and it's free. And the documentary is called Eating Our Way to Extinction. So it is about the environmental impact of eating plant-based or not eating plant-based. And there'll be free pizza donated by one of our participants, Pizza My Heart. They have this really great pineapple jalapeno vegan pepperoni pizza. So you can try that. And we'd love for non-vegans to come and check it out, as well as interested vegans. So you can find out more information there online. Also, it's a Facebook event, but it's downtown Santa Cruz Library, Sunday, April 26th at 2:30.
Alrighty, you've been listening to Allison Garcia, lead volunteer and organizer of the Santa Cruz Vegan Chef Challenge here in its inaugural year in Santa Cruz County, as well as Patrice Boyle, owner of La Posta restaurant in Seabright and one of the participants of the Santa Cruz Vegan Chef Challenge. Allison and Patrice, I just want to thank you both so much for coming on the show. It's been really just fun, always, of course, talking about food, but learning about plant-based meals as well as all things restaurants and the history of food. It's been a great conversation. So thank you both for joining me today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yes.
Thank you.
Alrighty, that's been KSQD's Talk of the Bay. We are signing off for the day.
Ciao, ciao.